Ladies and gentlemen, he is one of the most influential chefs in the world. He is known for being the co-creator, producer, and host on shows such as Bizarre Foods, What's Eating America, and he's got an amazing, engaging new show called Family Dinner. Andrew Zimmern, welcome to Meet Me for Coffee. How are you? Good morning.
Fantastic. Good morning to you.
Thank you. How do you take your coffee? Let's get that question out of the way.
Black.
Awesome. I got my coffee right here. We got a nice franchise up here in Canada called Tim Hortons. I got the HE Double Hockey Sticks coffee. I think mine black as well. So you got a new show called Family Dinner. It struck a chord in me because my family, they're refugees. And I really like the preview because you phased in your life in the transition to the actual premise of the show. I like how you're really personable. You're really down to earth. I really think you're one of the most down to earth TV personalities out there. It had me locked in immediately. Can you talk about how you came up with the concept of Family Dinner and what it's all about for our viewers and listeners?
It's got a great genesis story, completely unique, and probably the fastest television show that our production company has sold in its history. The folks at Magnolia, I knew Chip and Joanna Gaines when they first joined the Discovery family of networks, when HGTV first put them on the air with their original show, Fixer Upper. And apparently, I don't remember I remember the first time that I met them, but I don't remember the details. But they remembered the details. And apparently, as new talent, when you go to these upfronts, these big collections of all the stars in the Discovery Network's galaxy, it can be very intimidating. And apparently I was nice to them and I found them absolutely delightful. I remember meeting them that day because they blew up and I was like, oh, there's that nice couple from Fixer Upper. Wow, it's the biggest show on TV now. And when Discovery made their deal with Chip and Joanna, they brought Allison Page over from Food Network to run the partnership network between Chip and Joanna and Discovery. And I've known Allison for like 20 years. So Allison called me up and said, hey, Chip and Joanna want an intuitive content show, that's our production company, on the new network. Our production company is a premium production company. We have certain areas of expertise. We've branched out into a lot of other genres, but we're a premium company with a certain look and feel. And they really wanted a show that was that looked and felt like ours. And they said, let's go get one. So we started talking and they said, we heard a lot about the network. And literally the first words out of my mouth were, how about a show called Family Dinner? And Allison knew right away what I meant. The other people in the room did not. In almost every episode of TV I've ever done, and in 99.9% of Bizarre Foods episodes, we did a family dinner. We didn't have a big giant yellow arrow pointing at it or flashing lights saying pay attention. But I wanted people on one side of the world to see, because the show aired in 170 some odd countries. I wanted people in one side of the world to see what people on the other side of the world looked like at the dinner table, because I felt if people in Japan could see what people in Ecuador in the jungle are like eating at dinner, they would recognize themselves, because we all do the same stuff. And I would put my dining out credentials in family homes up against anyone over the course of the last 15 years. Everybody does the same thing. I don't care whether you're a tribe in the Kalahari or whether you're a French family of means in some, fancy 600-year-old castle. The grandmas tell the kids to sit up straight and, pay attention and yes, clear your plate when you're done. I mean, it's the same stuff absolutely everywhere. So I said, why not do Family Dinner? It's something I believe in so strongly. I think it's an undertold, everyone does it, who can afford to eat, because eating well in the West is a class issue, which is horrific. But it also allows us to tell the stories of who these people are. And I think in a world that constantly defines itself by what separates us, another show that contributes to the things we have in common would be of value. So they went back and they said, oh my God, we love that idea. And literally within a week, they were like, we're going to buy it. who do you think could host it? And we went through a whole list of people hosting it. And then Chip and Joanna and Allison called me up and said, every time we're talking about who could host it, we keep thinking about, well, it has to be someone like Andrew. And then we can't find that person. So they're like, would you host it? And I said, sure. And that was it. We went out, we made 20 episodes over the last 9 months. It starts airing in Q1 2021. I'm really excited for people to see it. I think the show is fantastic.
It's absolutely amazing. The concept, right? I don't think it gets more real than having a good conversation. Because people let their guard down when they're having a meal with each other, right?
Well, it's the day. I mean, I don't know how it is with your extended family, but when you all get together, I would imagine it's kind of like cooking all day, and some people come and go, and someone drops off a dish, and someone else runs to the market to pick up the fresh bread, and then someone comes back, and then someone's manning the grill, and you get a chance to kind of talk to everybody and hear the family story. And there is no better, I mean, you can't, Herman Melville couldn't have written a more complex and heartfelt story of humanity than every individual family's origin story. It's absolutely fascinating. So if you can get people to tell them your truth, it's unbelievable.
It's unreal. I mean, every dish, I mean, obviously, like for us, our dish comes down from generations. Like my family's from Cyprus. We have these dishes that only we make, and then we have those stories that come out at dinner that only we understand. And getting some of the background from the stories can be very informative and shocking as well sometimes. Like, I found out that my family is a refugee family that lived in a UN camp, but before that they were run out of their town, and everything leading up to the Turkish invasion of Cyprus. I had no clue that there was so much tensions going up to that very, very point. And it's stories like that you sit down, especially even for coffee. That's why this show's called Meet Me for Coffee, because I've always liked sitting for coffee with someone and speaking with them. And I really appreciate you had a chance, took time out of your day to do it. I mean, there's nothing like a family dinner. The food for your family dinners, for example, like what's something that you go to that your family loves to dine on?
If people were coming to my house, they would probably be eating roast chicken with onion pan gravy or some variant of that. I do the same dish that's made with lemongrass and chilies that I learned how to make in Penang in Malaysia. I make a version of it that I learned how to make in Peking that is essentially a cross between Chairman Mao's chicken and 3-cup chicken, which if people like to cook a lot of Chinese food, they understand are two fairly similar recipes, but kind of meld them together. In a lot of families, they braise chicken in soy sauce and rock sugar and rice wine with cinnamon and star anise and chilies, and you get a glazy, delicious, can't stop eating it chicken dish with a big bowl of rice. Those are the types of things that I make. And then I fill the meal out with 4 or 5 side dishes. I like to put a lot of side dishes. I want people to eat a smaller piece of animal protein and a lot of beans and vegetables and farinaceous foods, et cetera, at my table. So there'll be, a salad, there'll be a dish with grains, there're going to be, roasted vegetables, there's going to be, some other vegetable dish on the table. And I think that's fairly typical. For the one thing that it has in common, I think, with your family gatherings and all family gatherings is that left to my own devices, the dishes that I default to are the ones that also tell a story. Because, my kid liked this, so we started making it. Or I learned how to make this in this country from this grandma, and it became our family favorite halfway around the world. And you start to understand where human beings get ideas, and you start to understand how those ideas about food circumnavigate the globe now a lot faster than they ever have. I mean, you have to remember during the 16th century, during the Age of the Great Explorers and the beginning of the colonization movement, global colonization movement. The European countries all came through the Spice Islands and then all came up into the New World. And that's why our pumpkin pies have cinnamon and nutmeg and allspice and cloves in them. I mean, it's that simple.
I didn't know that. That's awesome.
And so food traveled very slowly. It took decades, 500 years ago. And now it takes just a matter of hours, because I can shoot something in one country and influence another family to make it halfway around the world. And that's a very, very speedy process. And I think that level setting has merit. I think acceptance, tolerance, and understanding has merit.
And we talked about going around the globe. You went around the globe doing the Bizarre Foods show. Another amazing concept. What country has to be at the top of your list, if you can name that? And has there ever been anything crazy that's happened to you, maybe after you've eaten something, or just behind the scenes that people don't know about?
You could almost pick any country in Africa, and I would want to go back there first. Africa is the most fascinating continent on the planet, with countries that I find endlessly fascinating. And within those countries, dozens and dozens of cultures existing at the same time, often tribal, that I get goosebumps just thinking about how glorious Africa is, and it's under-traveled and underappreciated in the West. And as far as stories and behind-the-scenes stuff, I mean, so many. You have to remember, we would be someplace for a week. We'd put 40 hours of tape into each of 3 cameras, and then distill it down to 44 minutes. And, so we're using 1% of our tape to make our show. And then we have all of our free time in places that are, you stick 12 to 16 lunatics on an American TV crew, and you put them in harm's way in Syria, or put us on a sinking boat in the middle of the South Pacific, or in a van sliding off a mountain in the Puerto Rican rainforest during what's essentially was a hurricane, are all pretty wild things. I will say that there's a couple. Whenever anybody asks me that question, a couple pop into my head. The first one, we were in Australia, and we were with some Aboriginal people in the north central part of the country, and we had some ridiculous experiences with them on camera. 30-foot man-eating crocodiles, and these people are stealing their eggs while the mommy crocodile is looking from 30 feet away in the water. They move very fast, and they eat the crocodile eggs raw. It's an incredible source of protein, and it's just, who knew, right? So we learned a lot about crocodiles while we're down there. And we were staying in a campsite, and the head of the campsite said, just make sure you watch the swimming instructions. Very hot, 120 degrees during the day. And they said, please, if you go bathe in the river, which you had to do every day just to cool off, it was wonderful, is to make sure you do it within the wire enclosures, so they can have the water run through the river. They put bales and bales of wire so that people can bathe safely in between the wire. They give you they make like a swimming pool at some point in the river, right? So the crocodiles can't cross, although a crocodile could just walk around. So you're always kind of hedgy, but you dip in the water. We came back from shooting one day, and everyone was very sad. And I said, what happened? And I noticed that the the nice, family from England or whatever wasn't there anymore. And apparently they had too much to drink that night, had gone down, let's swim, and gone into the wrong side of the enclosure, right? Wow. And gotten, they believe, taken by crocodiles. So, this is the environment that we're operating in there. So everyone is scared shitless all the time. And you're so far out in the outback. I mean, you're it. I mean, we have security people there carrying guns. We have medical kits in case anyone hurts themselves. I mean, you call for there's no medevac. The medevac is coming the next day. So, I mean, you're 24 hours from help of any kind. So we go to hunt poisonous frogs at night with this group of Aboriginal women. And we have seen these pictures that the only animal that kills big 30-foot crocodiles are these tiny little frogs, because the crocodiles, if they're really hungry and they haven't gotten a lot of food, still haven't learned not to eat this one type of frog. There are dozens of types of frogs all over the water system there. But there's one type of frog that has a bufotoxin in its spine on its back, and it secretes this poison, and it literally just explodes the crocodile from within. And they have found these crocodiles on the side of the riverbanks or in these ponds or these saltwater estuaries with their stomachs blown open, and it's really from gorging on these poisonous frogs. So we capture like 10 of these frogs. We clean them, and they're frying the frogs' legs for me. And they're really big frogs because the frogs are huge. And they're frying these frogs' legs for me. And the old white guy who was one of the guides is like, "Don't eat that, mate. Don't eat that." And I'm like, well, these people have been eating it for thousands of years, and there's no problem. And I turned to the ladies, and through their translator, I'm saying these are good to eat, and they're saying, "Oh yeah, we eat them all the time. Like, you have to take the spine out, kind of like blowfish or some of the other poisons. You have to make sure you remove the glands with the poison, but then the rest of it is fine to eat." And the guy's like, "Too dangerous, mate, too dangerous." And so I eat one, and it is out of this world delicious. I mean, it is the best frog I've ever tasted. I happen to like frog. So I eat another one and another one. And my director is like, slow down. And, our old white guy just sitting there going, "Mate, you're eating too many. There's going to be, the poison is in the meat too in little doses, but you got a red line." And I just kept eating the frog because it was so delicious. And that night, my producer director got in the car with me alone. We drove like 4 hours to this clinic, and we sat outside. There's no one in the clinic, but there's a phone there, and if you pick it up, it'll dial the doctor who comes over and opens the clinic, and he'll see patients. And we sat there for like 6 hours until the sun came up, because Chris didn't want me to die in my hotel room from eating too much of the poisonous frog. Oh, and wow. I just remember sitting there looking at him like, "Can we please go back to the hotel? I just want to sleep. I'm going to be fine. I just ate the legs of the frog." And he's like, "If you die on my watch, my career's over. I can't work in television again. So I'm going to sit here with you until we know that you're out of the woods." And eventually dawn came up, and I said, "Come on." And we called the doctor and said, "Do we need to wait any longer? This guy ate all these." He's like, "No." He says, "Go home. The stuff is fast acting." He would have been dead in the car driving over here.
Holy moly. You always have these experiences behind the scenes that you always remember, right? And that's one of them. And I feel like there's a whole bunch just that you could do another show on, just talking about that stuff. There's one thing that, I always wondered, when you go to these countries, how do you find the families, the people who want to feed you or show you the cuisine? And have you ever been employed to think that, hey, this rat or whatever is something that we eat around here?
we have really fantastic researchers and writers and producers who spend a lot of time finding people. We have incredible fixers, producers on the ground in other countries that help us navigate, and we work with very closely. We have a team of fixers in over 100 countries and regions around the world that we still use for all of our shows. We often joke here at our company that, it's an old cliche, but our Rolodex is probably our most valuable asset. The iPhone changed the game for international travel TV. It used to be that really good fixers, when we first started making, we made the pilot that was it was a special, then they called it a pilot, then it became episode 1. We made that like 16 years ago, right? So in those days, to make that pilot, we had some fixers in 4 different countries who would actually take a small little Sony prosumer video recorder, and they would go out and they would shoot stuff, and then they would mail us the little cassette. Now, if I want to do something in the furthest reaches of the Amazon, right, I can contract with outfitters down there to take a producer up the river 2-3 days to wherever, let's say, this tribe is, and literally he just sits there and FaceTimes us and says, here it is, and we get to actually interview people and cast people and say, oh, that character. We get to see someone's food while they're cooking it. The ability to research now is as far away. It's immediate. It's immediate. And so that's been incredibly helpful to us. I also think the production team here at Intuitive Content that Patrick and Patrick, the 2 gentlemen that run the company for me, have assembled has an incredible nose for a good story. I think the most undervalued talent in the TV business are people on the other side of the camera in production very, very early on in the process who say, no, go left here, not go right. Because it's that very first 1 or 2 decisions that dictate where you wind up 6 months later shooting. And if that decision is a wrong decision, it's toxic.
Absolutely. The people behind the camera and people who edit video and producers are just, there's a lot of great ones. There's a lot of bad ones. And there's a lot of people who have a great head on their shoulders that can help you elevate your game and help you become and reach your goals. There was something very interesting I found out about the Independent Restaurant Coalition. Can you talk about that?
Sure. When the COVID pandemic first hit at the end of February, beginning of March here in the United States, and obviously it had started in other parts of the world, we, a couple of us, 30 some odd folks who have been doing a lot of service work and a lot of social justice advocacy, and who had connections in Washington, D.C., and who were mobilizers and thought leaders in our industry, et cetera, got together on a phone call, right? Zoom was a week away from being popular. And we founded the Independent Restaurant Coalition, whose sole purpose is to advocate on Washington, D.C., for legislation that will save our industry from what I believe is an extinction event if we don't get what is now called the Restaurants Act passed in Washington, D.C. on Capitol Hill. It's passed Congress. It's sitting on Mitch McConnell's desk. It's got bipartisan support, Republicans and Democrats here in our country, in the Senate. Both have sponsored this bill. It's about saving jobs. It's about saving the economy. It's horrific that anybody would be against it, simply because while it's got $120 billion price tag, every independent agencies from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce to the Office of Management and Budget all agree that if it isn't passed, it will cost $270 billion to taxpayers in lost jobs, lost revenue, lost travel, on and on and on and on and on.
This is something that I feel that we need up here in Canada. We have these the government loans and the financing for small businesses and restaurants, but there's a lot of businesses that are being locked down now. Like in Toronto, there is a lockdown, and a lot of small restaurants they're done. Right? They can't withstand a second lockdown or a restrictive process. Definitely something that should come to light here in Canada. The holidays are around the corner, Andrew. Meal recommendations. I know your eggnog is fantastic. By the way, I'm one of your top fans now on your Facebook page. I don't know how that happened, but it happened just minutes before I jumped on this call. Holiday meal recommendations. What are you going to, or what's your go-to on maybe this Christmas?
Well, this coming up holiday season is going to be different than any other, just like Thanksgiving was different than any other.
Absolutely.
The idea that we can gather for the December holidays, I think, are a pipe dream. Hanukkah starts, I think, on the 10th. Christmas Eve is the 24th. Kwanzaa, New Year's Eve. I mean, I don't think, Chinese New Year coming up then after that. I think we are 8 weeks away from being able to even think about gathering outside of our protected pods. Here in America, Canadian Thanksgiving is much earlier in October. Belated Happy Thanksgiving to you.
Thank you.
But Thanksgiving here in America was just last week, and we had our busiest travel day since March. I find that as a citizen, that my fellows would get up and that 9 million people would take an airplane on Sunday alone is the kind of super spreader event of sci-fi movies. We're not talking about 20,000 people in a stadium at a political rally, or 500 people in a movie theater, or 100 people at a wedding, all of which have proved to be very big super spreader events. We're talking about 9 million people taking an airplane trip on a Sunday, on one day in America. That's horrific to me. So, start the clock. 5 to 7 days, people are going to start to get sick. 5 to 7 days after that, it's going to overwhelm an already overwhelmed healthcare system. So that the idea that we're going to be gathering 20 to a table is out the window. So it's going to be small. It's going to be humble. I'm probably going to roast a duck this year. I mean, the big ham is out of the question. We already did a small turkey for Thanksgiving and gave a lot of that away and processed a lot of it into other dishes to freeze and enjoy later. So I think it's going to be a duck for two this year.
I think so for us too. Maybe not duck, but I'm looking for a nice roast. Actually, I'm sick of turkey, to be honest. It's always turkey every holiday, but thankfully,
well, have you tried a capon?
No.
Fantastic, a neutered male chicken. It's they get to be 7-8 pounds. You can eat off it for a couple of days, but it really makes a wonderful roast. And it's funny that you use that word, because I actually tweeted or Instagram, I forget, somewhere I pulled something out of the oven and I just said, is there anything better than bringing a beautiful roast to the table, whether it's 2 people or 4 or 24, if you live in South Korea and can gather in those numbers. I'm really, a crispy lacquered duck coming to the table, carved up. If it's just my son and I for Thanksgiving, or for Christmas, then it's just us. So we'll see how it goes.
Absolutely. And, Thanksgiving for you guys is like a full blown shebang, but I wish we could celebrate Thanksgiving on the same day, Andrew.
Why can't we? I mean, it's, you've seen that map, right? That came out like 8-9 months ago, where a whole bunch of states were going to become absorbed into Canada, leaving a whole bunch of other states of ours behind, when it seemed like there was this rift in this country that was actually going to boil over into something much worse than even what we're seeing now, which is pretty darn bad. We know that I live in Minnesota. We're right on your border, right? So we think of ourselves as almost Canadian. We ought to have the same currency, and we ought to have some kind of there should be greater joining of stuff, and it should start with the merging of one Thanksgiving. I'm the person who wants to give up Pilgrim Thanksgiving, number one, because it's a myth. Number two, it's disrespectful to the indigenous people. It's just a horrifically racist holiday, right?
Yes.
So why can't we actually have Indigenous Peoples Day and let that stay on the last Friday of the month in November, which is, traditionally when it is? And can't we move like a gratitude day and push it closer with Canadian Thanksgiving and just maybe pick something in the middle? And we could have turkey and poutine.
Yes. And you know what? Maybe we should just move it to your Thanksgiving, because a lot of us take the Thursday and the Friday off to watch football anyway. So we might as well just do that. I've never understood why it's so different. For us, we just get the Monday off. You guys get almost a whole week off. I don't understand. But you know what? We celebrate as well. I mean, for me, turkey, I always try and get out of turkey, to be honest. Yep. By the way, happy Thanksgiving to you. I'm a big fan of the Minnesota Vikings as well. So it's I feel you there. But Thanksgiving for me, I always try and get out of turkey. Being from the Middle East or whatever, I like my souvlaki, my souvla, the roasted lamb. I always try and go to that, but I never actually win, right? Fortunately for me, my wife, she's from Argentina, and she always makes some awesome South American dishes, and I'm always entertained with that. It's nice to have the ability to shift between cultures.
Why can't you? We actually this year we almost did a leg of lamb because I had one in the freezer. I love roasting a leg of lamb for a holiday meal.
Absolutely,
that's actually if the duck idea doesn't go over very well, it's going to be lamb, because I still have that leg of lamb in the fridge. I think the classic English joint of a roast, and pare back that shin bone and have that sticking out to hold on to carve this beautiful, perfectly cooked and rested leg of lamb. I just think is glorious.
Yeah, absolutely. And in Argentina, when I went there, I was eating this meat. I was like, this lamb is delicious. And then the next day, these ribs, they're unreal. These beef ribs are unreal. What's on this? What is on this? Like, what's the seasoning? It's this rock salt. We bought it up here. You can get it shipped to your house. It's like the most amazing salt ever. It clings onto the meat as you're roasting it. It stays on. Like, we have the open pit or whatever. Definitely recommend it to you. I'd love to send you a couple bottles of it. But lamb for me, it knocks turkey out of the park, obviously.
Yeah. I happen to be one of those few people, and there are very few of them that actually likes turkey. And I've spent a lifetime mastering a roasted bird. It has to be a certain size. I have a couple farmers who grow a large-breasted, very, very, very delicious turkey, and I've learned how to cook it, keep it moist. It's got the stuffing that I love. I've eaten some of it every day since Thursday, either for lunch or for dinner. I'm going to have the last of it tonight when I get home, and I just am in love with that bird. We confit some legs here. We braise the thighs in red wine and vegetables. The breast meat can be simply roasted just to the point of being done for sandwiches. Turkey is way more versatile than people understand it to be. And I would just insist that people avoid those supermarket turkeys with a little plug in it that like pops out when it's done. Commodity birds like that are eating so much bad food, and they have no flavor, and they cook disproportionately, and they're just not right. They're just not right.
Absolutely. And the whole cooking part goes back to the family dinner thing. It's it all comes together in the end. And for me, when I look back at some of the most memorable meals I've ever had, it's always been my grandmother's meals, right? It's always, been those things that I feel if I don't learn them now, I'll never ever be able to cook them the way she made them. And that's why I tried making my own cookbook with all the recipes and just actually putting it together and making them. You probably have the best job in the world. I'm not going to lie to you. Like it's like food. And by the way, Andrew has his own YouTube series. Andrew Zimmern cooks on YouTube. You want to check out some of the dishes there. Big fan of it. Andrew, anything else you want to say on this episode of Meet Me for Coffee?
No, it's a thrill to be able to speak to you. Thanks for giving me a platform to rant about all the things that I like to rant about. And yes, I would encourage all of the people who are listening and seeing this to please check out andrewzimmern.com. Sign up for our newsletter. You get tons of cool stuff into your box all the time. The latest and greatest info on what's going on in our world. It's a really great website, won a lot of awards. There's a ton of cool information there, including a lot of food recipes. So please go check out andrewzimmern.com.
Well, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day. And hopefully we'll be seeing you at the family dinner table.
I appreciate it, George. Thanks a lot.